In this video, we will have a look at how to access the dataset published in EdelweissData. Let us start at the EdelweissData.com homepage. Here we can select all datasets, and now we can view all publicly available datasets. By clicking on a row, we can open that dataset. On the right side, we have two buttons that provide access to this dataset. The right button downloads the data as a CSV file, but often we would rather access the dataset from our data analysis tool directly, for example, from Python, R Notebook, or 9. This is possible through the REST API, which returns the data in a JSON format. If we click on the left API button, we get a window with two code snippets. The upper one shows how to access the dataset programmatically from a Python code. Here, the code relies on a Python client, which makes it convenient to interact with EdelweissData. Just by calling the getPublishedDataset method on the API object, we get Pandas data frame directly. The bottom snippet shows a more universal approach, which is not limited by the programming language. Here, the GET request is sent to the EdelweissData server with a URL that designates which dataset are you trying to access. The server then responds with a JSON that contains our data. We will demonstrate accessing the dataset published in EdelweissData with an observable HQ notebook, which is based on a JavaScript programming language. Here in this cell, we call the JavaScript's fetch command, where we provide URL that designates the dataset we are trying to access. If we look in more detail, we see that the first part of this URL refers to the EdelweissData instance, this part, and this is followed by the second part, which contains dataset ID. This is a unique ID that is unique to every published dataset, and is followed by dataset version and by a keyword data. The latter designates that we want only the data part of our dataset. If we replace this keyword with metadata, the server would return us metadata in JSON format. Let us now look at how does the response from the server look like when we try to access the data. This is the response from the server. So the server returned as a response object in a JSON format. This object has four properties: total, offset, limit, and results. The most interesting part is stored in the results property. This is where our data is contained. If we expand the results, we see that they contain an array where each element of an array is object that corresponds to a single row of data. If we expand this row object, we see that it has two properties, ID and data. The actual content of the row is contained inside the data property. If we expand it, we can see that it contains key value pairs, where each key is a column name and value is the value of the cell in that row and column. This is a brief overview of how to access the dataset published in EdelweissData using the REST API. Again, this is a very general approach that is not limited by the programming language. If you want to learn more about EdelweissData, please visit the EdelweissData.com.